We had $69,000 worth of debt, and it was credit cards, awesome shopping, eating out, small student loans, but for the most part, it was just living life in New York City. We have this running joke that outside in New York is expensive.
Oh, right.
You go outside and you go for pizza, it's $75.
Right.
We just lived a normal life in New York City. We were going out to brunches all the time, going out, eating out.
See, I hear that's how they live in New York City, you know, brunches and all these special, have drinks after work.
If you weren't going to brunch, what were you doing?
Yeah.
You weren't socializing, but that lifestyle caught up with us quickly. I worked in an industry that was considered recession-proof. I worked in the health insurance industry.
Right.
He worked in a hospital system. It was very few layoffs, very little volatility.
Right.
We were pretty much secure until I had to lay off part of my team.
Wow.
Until I thought that I was being laid off. And when I thought I was being laid off, it resonated with me because I said, if we got laid off tomorrow, we'll be in trouble.
And sometimes that fear is a powerful motivator.
We were way beyond what we needed. So in the end, when we made the decision to walk away, we hit our number a couple of years ago, and I kept having one more year syndrome. So about 3 years ago, we were able to say, all right, we have that amount of money, we can walk away.
Right.
But I kept thinking I needed to work one more year. 2 years ago, my husband had a life-changing health issue. He had a massive heart attack.
Oh my goodness.
And we're blessed that he's still here.
And he's good now?
Yes, he's fine now.
Great.
And he's here with me. But I think it was that life-changing instance.
Welcome to Catching Up to FI, a podcast on mindset, money, and life for late starters of any age on their journey to financial independence. I'm Bill, and I'm a late starter.
I'm Jackie, and I'm also a late starter, and we're your host. We're here to help you on your journey to financial independence, no matter where you're starting.
We're going to talk to experts, other late starters, and explore topics related to our mission.
Join us as we catch up to FI together.
So joining us today on the show is Kim Hunter-Borst. Kim, you know, I've been wanting to get you on for a while, and it's such a treat because we are live here in Bali at the FI Freedom Retreat. Look at that big smile on there. So we're actually at the hotel where this takes place, and this is the Padaran. Right. Oh, it's been amazing here. They have an amazing breakfast area over here. But Kim, is this your first time in Bali?
No, actually, it's my second. I'm a repeat attendee to the FI Freedom Retreat.
I thought so.
I was here last year, and then I returned this year. Really?
Wow.
Excited.
Okay, so I want to hear all about it, but I wanted to start out talking a little bit about your money story. Like growing up, you live in New York currently.
I live in New York presently.
I want to know, what was money like growing up? Do you have any early memories of money lessons?
I do, and it's funny, Jackie, I think during this retreat, I got to spend some time digging into some of my money scripts after your session, I have to say.
Yeah.
I don't know if I'm happy about that or if I'm upset with you. But
we can briefly take a detour on that, but there was something called the money egg.
The money egg.
And it basically plotted money stories. So did that bring up some memories for you?
It did, and to be honest with you, there were two stories in particular that resonated with me that up until now, I always thought of them as great money stories or great motivators. One was when I was about 19 years old, I used to go out with my girlfriend. And after going out, we would always go to this one diner about 11, 12 o'clock at night. And this little old lady serving us coffee that night and serving us our meals. And I remember thinking, if I'm not careful, this is what my parents are talking about. That would be me. And that resonated with me. That was something that just stuck in my mind as I progressed in life and my career was I need to make more money. And all I knew is make more money.
Yeah.
And then the second money story that resonates with me, and this again is way further along, is my mother worked her entire life in the same hospital system. And that hospital system was bought out by another hospital system. And anyone that worked less than 20 years didn't get a dime. And anyone that worked 20 years got a flat $10,000 pension. And that story rattled me to my core because by then, I was much further along in my career, and I was recognizing that if I can't rely on my company, the pension, what can I rely on?
Right.
And it scared me.
Yeah. That's so weird that we have those little snippets in our past or those memories from when we were really, really young. So there's something very different about last time you were in Bali and this time. What big thing happened this year?
So last time I was in Bali, I was one of those people that was struggling with the one more year syndrome. I was one of those late starters that I kept running the numbers and I kept saying, this can't be right. It took me so long to get started, but I got here so quickly that I doubted whether or not it was true. And also I was struggling with some identity issues. I've been who I was, Kim Hunter-Borst, in my industry.
And what was your industry?
I worked in health insurance. I worked in strategic initiatives with our health insurance company. I was there for 34 years.
Wow. 34 years?
34
Oh my
years.
gosh. We don't have anybody working that long at jobs anymore.
Not anymore.
But you still didn't think that you were financially ready?
I did not think so because it was never money script I had. My family was one where it was all about you make sure you pursue a great career, you earn a lot of money, but you also looked a certain way. You dressed a certain way. You drove a certain car. You did certain things.
And you're in a high cost of living area too.
And you went to certain vacations. So I bought into that hook, line, and sinker. I thought that those were the trappings of success.
Right.
And then I found the FI community and found out that it was all,
Wow.
I can't say this, but it was all BS.
Oh, and that's what I wanted to talk more about. How did you discover the FI community? Like, what year was it?
Well, I discovered it, I want to say in 2014 is when I started looking.
Okay, so we're talking 10 years.
Yes.
At least.
So in 2013 is where the market started to take the turn. And that's where I got nervous. And that's around the time where my mother found out she would no longer have a pension. And I started looking at a number saying, if that were to happen to me, what would I have to show for it?
Yeah.
How would we survive? And I recognized clearly that we would not have much. We were earning really decent income. Can we talk about numbers?
Yeah.
And that's one of the things I love about you, Jackie.
Yes.
You're very transparent.
Well, I don't want other people to feel like they have to talk about the specific number. So what was it that got your attention that made you start following people in the FI community? Was there anything in particular? It is always interesting to hear how people were introduced to the FI community and said, that's what I've been looking for.
Yes. I will tell you, I got started, there was a woman named Lydia Sen, I found her online. Because back then, there wasn't a lot of folks out there on YouTube. Catch Up to FI didn't exist.
Right.
There wasn't a lot of folks, but on Instagram, there was a small community of people called the debt-free community. It wasn't a talk from fire. It was just talking about how to get out of debt. And unfortunately, at the time, my husband and I had a significant amount of debt.
What kind of debt did you guys have?
We had $69,000 worth of debt, and it was credit cards, from shopping, eating out, small student loans, but for the most part, it was just living life in New York City. We have this running joke that outside of New York is expensive.
Oh, right.
You go outside and you go for pizza, it's $75.
Right.
We just lived a normal life in New York City. We were going out to brunches all the time, going out, eating out.
See, I hear that's how they live in New York City, you know, brunches and all these special, have drinks after work.
If you weren't going to brunch, what were you doing?
Yeah.
You weren't socializing, but that lifestyle caught up with us quickly. And I think added to that is when I met my husband, he had 2 children. And as stepmom, I thought it was my job to bring the fun. So a lot of that spending was on vacations, taking the kids out, spending on them with things that they want. Kids want things that they see their friends having, and you just want to provide it. But by the time we looked up and got serious about money, it was like 2016. But I found out about it in 2014. And then I kept lurking. I kept looking, thinking, it can't be that
still
easy.
mainly on Instagram.
Mainly on Instagram. I kept saying, this can't be serious. It can't be that easy.
Right.
It has to be more complicated than this. If it's this easy, how come everyone isn't doing it? So the woman, Lydia Sen, was talking about living life without credit cards. And I have to say, in the beginning, I thought that was the answer. Oh, if I can just get rid of my credit cards, that solves everything and everything will be fine. But in reality, you need a FICO score, no matter what. That's how you.
Easier said than done.
Yes, easier said than done. So my church was offering something called, I think it's, everybody knows Dave Ramsey. Yeah. They were offering his financial peace course. And I went through the financial peace training, and I thought that the first, I want to say, few steps were what I needed. Understanding money, what's coming in, what's going out, understanding the debt snowball versus the debt avalanche. But then I also started to question something. Like, okay, Now we're on the other side of this. Reality-wise, I can't live without a credit score.
Wow.
Not living in New York City. You can't buy a car. You can't buy a home.
Right.
There's certain things you can't do. I just kept digging and digging. I came across other channels, but I found that on YouTube and Instagram by then, there were a lot more people out there and a lot more folks telling their story. But it went from millennial money to retire, and there was nothing in between. Very little in between.
See, that's interesting. You remember some of the early days, because I remember some of those days. So we're talking 2014, 15, 16. And I think, I would consider She's FI is probably one of the earliest, FI focused podcasts.
Exactly.
But they didn't come along, I think, until 2016 or 17. So what do we do in between? So I didn't realize you discovered the community that early.
I discovered the community, but it wasn't the FI community. I think what I discovered was the debt-free community.
Okay.
And the frugality.
Which is a phase if you think
Yes,
about it.
it
And
is.
sometimes I don't think we talk about the debt piece enough, but a lot of people will say, okay, I've got all this debt, how can I reach FI? But that is a part you have to take care of first. And then once you address the debt, then you kind of go to the next phase. What about some of these other things like earning or looking at my expenses and things like that? So I got you. So that's a piece that I know resonates with a lot of people dealing with the debt.
And I think what resonated with me the most was when you talk about millennials, it was, go get a side hustle. But in my career, I was already working. It was over a number of hours. There was no side hustle. But we were able to take a look at our expenses. We took a look at what was coming in, what was going out, how we allocating our finances, and that helped significantly. So the Dave Ramsey money steps, the baby steps about paying off debt was perfect for us. But that whole life of frugality and living without any type of fun did not resonate with us. We had 2 children at the time that were entering their teens, and to just cut back everything didn't make sense. And especially, we were high earners. We had a lot of money coming in.
Okay, so when you say high, and it's New York City,
Yes, it's New
so
York City.
what would be considered high earner? Over 6 figures?
We were over 6 figures. So yes.
Okay.
So by the time we retired, by the time we figured out that we needed to do some things differently, we were making combined about $215,000 a year, and that was without bonuses. And then by the time we got to the end, we were making about $334,000.
Wow.
But the difference is, earlier in our story, when we first discovered the amount of debt we were in, we were making $215,000, and we were living paycheck to paycheck. And we were spending every dollar that came in, and sometimes we weren't making it through the next paycheck.
Yeah.
Fast forward, after learning some of the basic principles of money management, listening to Choose FI, listening to Catching Up to FI, and realizing we were 48 and 55 at the time, we realized it's not too late, because we thought it was. And when we figured out the whole process, we just started doing things differently, like living on less than we brought in. As we got raises, we invested that money. Then we
Awesome. You made some. So
yes.
Kim, I'm always curious about, was there an igniter or something that happened that sort of shook things up, shook you up to say, I'm going to do something different?
So I mentioned about my mother, but around the same time, I worked in an industry that was considered recession-proof. I worked in the health insurance industry.
Right.
He worked in a hospital system. It was very few layoffs, very little volatility.
Right.
We were pretty much secure until I had to lay off part of my team.
Wow.
Until I thought that I was being laid off. And when I thought I was being laid off, it resonated with me, because I said, if we got laid off tomorrow, we'd be in trouble.
And sometimes that fear is a powerful motivator. I just wanted to hear, like, what was yours? The thing that just made you think about everything a little different, even struck a little fear in you to where you started making all these. So was your husband on board?
He was not. It took a little while to get on board. The issue was, I'm the second wife. So his first marriage, he was the earner, and she managed the money. And every time he needed money, he had to go and ask for money. So when the 2 of us met, he said, I never want to be in that position again, because I felt like a child. He says, I don't want us to combine finances. And I said, okay, then I have some friends that I might need to introduce you to. Because I'm a firm believer that if we're doing it together, we're doing it all
So he
together.
was suggesting to have separate finances, and you weren't going for it.
I wasn't going for it.
Okay.
And I even said, I don't need to manage the money. You can manage the money. I don't care who manages it. I just think if we're a team, we're a team.
Right. So his issue was that he didn't like going to someone else for money. So if he managed it, maybe that solved that problem for him. Okay.
Yes. Okay. And it took him all of 2 months to figure out management.
It wasn't easy, right? It wasn't easy.
But I think what got him on board was, I'm trying to remember, we were listening to a podcast. And I don't remember, I hate that I can't remember whose podcast it was, but they talked about some money. We each got a pocket of money.
Okay.
We each got a separate account that was our own account. And every Friday we got a little bit of pocket money.
Gotcha.
That way you could have money, you could make a decision on what you want. If you want to spend it on music, you wanted to spend it on anything you wanted to spend it on, you could do so without consulting one another. And that gave him a sense of, I think, ownership. And then he was fine after that. And he trusted me to manage the finances.
Because it's critical to have your partner on board. Did you find that? Because you hear that question asked almost every day, like, how do you get your partner on board? So you were ready to make these shifts, right? How did you get him on board? Was it pretty easy?
It was nice.
No. Okay.
I have to say, Jackie, it went on. I want to say I was on board quickly once I figured out, once that fear kicked in and I recognized that there was a process that we could follow. I was ready to get on board, but it was just all the little tweaks and changes. Don't use those credit cards. Use this debit card. Don't spend from this account. These bills are coming out. We paid for this. Or now we've gotten on the other side of debt and we're now investing all of this money. He questioned, I'm working every 2 weeks and my paycheck looks like I'm not making any money because it's all going to 401ks or 403bs and going to the catch-up.
Yeah, how do you feel about that?
Oh, he just said, this makes no sense. What are they selling you? You don't know. This doesn't work. What if it doesn't work? And then I think the other thing was this level of fear that most people have, especially Americans, where it was, you can't trust the market. You don't know what they're doing. It might be a scam. What if the market collapses? He kept saying, what if the market collapses tomorrow?
Oh, wow. He was scared at all with you. Okay.
He said, shouldn't we just pull everything out of the market and put it in the mattress?
What?
And I had to say, if the market collapsed and we had the money printed out on paper and under the mattress, it wouldn't be worth the paper that is printed.
Right.
So let's just trust the process. And then the other thing is, because we were much further along in life and in our careers, we weren't starting from scratch. We had something. So I had about $219,000 in my 401k. He had about $17,000 in his 403b. So we weren't starting from zero.
Okay.
So when we started contributing money to those pots seriously, when we started maxing them out, we started to see growth really quickly.
Right.
And I think
see, no matter how much you have, that's pretty powerful.
Yeah.
Because I mean, I think when I finally looked at my 401k, I had maybe $20,000 and my husband had a lot more, but at least it wasn't zero. So I just want to tell all of our late starters, even if it's a very small amount, even 5,000, that's starting with something. And it does feel better than just saying, I'm either sub-zero or I'm at zero. You are ahead if you've got anything saved for retirement. Okay, so Kim, you said you were open to talking about the numbers. So fast forward to today, or let's say a few years ago, when you're finally looking at your numbers, you talked about your income. What did your expenses look like before you started your FI journey and after? Like you were saying, you have step kids, you can't just cut. I want to know, let's look at the expenses, because you were saying getting a side hustle was not going to work. You're already working a bunch of hours. Did you know what your savings rate was?
If we're being honest, very early in my career, one of my mentors said, put 6% in your 401k and a company will match 3%. That was my favorite.
Okay. And I think that's where I started too.
Yeah. And that's all I was doing. And as my income grew, my savings never grew.
So the percentage. But probably if your income went up, then you probably
I was putting more away.
Putting a little bit more away.
And I think the saving grace was the money was going to my 401k and I wasn't looking at it.
Wow.
I didn't pay attention to it. I knew the money was going there, but I was thinking, what is 6%? It's so small.
Right. It didn't seem like much.
It didn't. But when we finally sat down and assessed what was coming in and what was going out, we were spending in upwards of $9,000 a month.
Wow.
And it was excessive, and it was on things that didn't matter. It wasn't on things like I'm living. We're those unicorns where my husband's been in the same apartment since my daughter was born. And she's 26 years old. She's my stepdaughter, but that's my baby.
Right.
So she's 26 years old. So in New York City, there's these things called rent stabilization apartments.
Okay, explain
And
that to me.
It means that the building is usually a pre-war building.
Okay.
And so the government has come in and set precedents to say that the owner of the building can only increase the rent by X amount percentage every year. They
Gotcha.
can't. They
Sort of like a rent control type of
Similar,
thing?
yeah, it's very much similar. So we're paying nowhere near normal market rate. Our neighbors are paying two.
Can you tell
sometimes
us
three
about what you're
times.
because housing is one of those big
It's
three.
one of those big three. So when I married my husband, we've been married 16 years now. When I first married him and I moved in, it's a 2-bedroom, 1-bathroom apartment. It's an elevated building with laundry in the building, a little courtyard, and a little outdoor.
Nice.
We were paying, when I moved in, we were paying $1,200 a month 16 years ago. And it's just gone to $1,700 a month
That's what you're paying now?
for New York City.
Oh, wow. That is a huge
That is a
superpower
huge superpower.
for New York City to
New
be
York.
paying $1,700 a month.
Absolutely. That is one saving grace.
Wow.
The other saving grace was because we live in New York City, we didn't need to own a car. And
Okay.
because we didn't own a car, we didn't have the expensive car payment,
Right.
insurance, gas.
So your transportation wasn't like, were you
transportation-
paying a lot for public transportation?
parking. Our public transportation, his company afforded us a lot of benefits. So we had a commuter benefit where they took the money out of his paycheck pre-tax, and we got Metro cards in the mail.
Now, is that called a commuter, a flexible spending account for commuter expenses or something like that?
Some companies offer that, but he worked for Cornell Hospital.
Okay.
And because it's in the city and there's a huge hospital in the city, they had, I guess, some dispensation from the city where instead of us getting our paycheck post-tax
Okay.
and buying a Metro card,
I got you.
they would just take the money out pre-tax.
So it was pre-tax. Okay.
And they would just take those funds and buy a Metro card and send it to us in the mail.
Gotcha,
so our
gotcha.
commuter expense was way less than 21%.
So you were
income.
saving on housing quite a bit. You were saving on transportation
Yes.
quite a bit. So what did food look like? That's the other big three.
Oh, that's the other big thing. Food in the beginning was a nightmare because we were going every 2 weeks to buy groceries, as you normally would, with
Yeah.
every intentional cooking. But you live in New York City.
You go out
But there's a new
and
restaurant.
that is where you spend a lot of
Yes.
money.
And then you go out, spend all this money on food, and it's a family of 4. So you're paying for a family of 4 in New York City to eat out.
Right,
and then you're
right.
coming home and throwing those groceries away, majority of them, because
Yeah.
they've spoiled. And then you go and buy more groceries.
Right, right,
Yeah.
right.
Hey, Jackie, guess what? We got a new sponsor for the show.
Yeah, I am very excited about our sponsor, thealloymarket.com. It came to us through our partnership with the Financial Influencers Network. And what they do is help amplify the stuff that we're talking about and getting us with great partners like the Alloy Market.
Yeah, the Alloy Market has a great story. The founder had a medical emergency, needed to take a break from his job, but needed to keep himself afloat. He had some inherited gold and silver or platinum. He sold it, but he wasn't sure how to do it. He didn't know where to go, and he's not sure he got good prices. The Alloy Market buys your gold, silver, and platinum for excellent prices and helps you declutter.
Yeah, that is so cool. So, Bill, I am going to put this new sponsor through the test. So, I forgot I had this little gold bar. About 10 years ago, a friend gave this to me, and it's 2.5 grams. So, I am going to go online and get the kit that they offer and see how much I can get. Supposedly, they give you a lot more, at least 70% of what the spot price is. So I'm looking forward to that. But a long time ago, Bill, this didn't exist. And my old wedding ring, I had that thing around forever. I'm all about decluttering. So when I finally got rid of it, the only option I had was to go to like a pawn shop or something, sometimes a sketchy part of town. I don't even know if I got a good deal. So I am looking forward to Alloy and checking out their process. And you should probably check it out too.
Yeah, Jackie, we're very happy to have the Alloy Market as a partner. I look forward to finding out how your test goes.
Yeah, just go to thealloymarket.com. That's TheAlloymarket.com. So you can do the same thing, and I will give you an update on what I got for my 2.5 grams of gold.
Yeah, that's thealloymarket.com. That's TheAlloymarket.com. Look for it in the show notes.
fast forward, we got smart. We signed up for a membership with Costco.
Okay.
We started buying ingredients and cooking at home. I'm not saying we never went out or ordered out, but we did so in moderation.
Now, were you the cook or your husband?
I was the cook
Okay, you was
initially,
the cook.
but he makes a mean breakfast.
Okay.
He makes the best coffee I ever made coffee in 16 years.
Okay.
He makes great coffee. And now he's learned maybe 18 to 19 recipes where he takes on the burden of cooking dinner sometimes.
Gotcha,
I would say a few nights a week he cooks dinner, which helps.
Okay.
But because we go to Costco, we've now learned that there are key ingredients that we can buy that we can make multiple things from. So the whole we go shopping every 3 weeks.
Okay.
And in that 3 weeks time, I learned how to make bread, sourdough bread. I make my own bread. I make my own mayo.
All that adds up.
All of it adds up.
You make your own mayo?
I
You
make
got to
my
give me a
mayo.
sample.
So
of that.
easy and it's delicious. But there's so many things that when you figure out, it's not that hard to do. And YouTube is out there. YouTube, TikTok, just like I learned about Fi.
That's true. That's how
Yes.
so you are looking at your numbers and you said, okay, so it sounds like you were spending before you start looking at your numbers and you're spending about $100,000 a year. Is that about right? Okay. And when you went and started looking at your expenses a little bit more, did you get that down? Were you able to get that down?
Immediately. We cut expenses. I mentioned Costco. We changed our phone cellular plan.
Okay.
Oh, that was huge. So we had AT&T for family of 3 because my husband had 2 children and our son was on his ex-wife's plan.
Okay.
So for a family of 3, we were paying $289 a month. And I was reading Fast Company magazine and I found that AT&T owned Cricket Wireless. And you see Cricket Wireless and it was like, oh, that's for people that are broke.
Right.
Well,
yeah,
and I thought
we hear these things out there. I think I'm not sometimes I've heard of the low cost providers, but but you said, I don't care what they think.
They're on the same platform, the same tower as AT&T. We were paying AT&T $289 a month. And I would say a large chunk of that was in fees that I didn't even understand. And then that same company, same tower, I switched to Cricket Wireless and we played a flat $100 and got 5 lines. We bought both the children on and my mom came on. It was a flat $100, no FCC fees, none of that. So that was a savings of $189. Cable, internet, whole phone. Who's calling somebody on the landline these days?
Right.
No one. So we got rid of cable.
Wow.
We switched. We got internet only and we stream. That's it. And we didn't go out and buy all these streaming because
that starts to add up.
Yeah.
So that's interesting. So I think it really makes sense. And for a lot of people, when you talk about cutting or reducing your expenses, they immediately start thinking about cutting out the things they love. These were things that you were just dissatisfied with, and you just took the extra step to get the cost down a little bit. So I feel like that's the right way to do it, because if you make yourself miserable, you're not going to stick with it.
And I think by making those small tweaks, they were small changes for us, but it equates to about $3,600 a month.
Wow.
And that $3,600
a month.
Yes.
Oh, wow.
That $3,600 a month, we were able to throw at debt because we got married late in life. I was 42, he was 49. I had credit cards, he had credit cards. And by the time we got together, there were 2 Amexes, 3 Capital One cards.
Right. So you consolidated and
And I looked up and our minimum payment every month was about $1,500 in credit cards. American Express was charging us on one credit card $6 a day in interest.
Wow.
And I got angry.
That is crazy. So how long did it take you to pay this debt off?
I mapped out a strategy. The plan was to get out of debt in 2 years because our oldest was about to start college and we needed to pay for school and help them through school. But we weren't going to sacrifice our retirement for that. I can tell you about that if you like. But our plan was 2 years, but we were able to do it in 18 months.
Wow.
Because that snowball.
Just by focusing.
Yeah. That snowball, by paying off debt and then celebrating those wins. Each time we paid off one, we had a little bit of a celebration.
Good for you.
Something inexpensive.
I think that's so important, Kim, to celebrate the wins. Every little thing. And it doesn't mean, like you said, you have to break the bank, but kind of give yourself a pat on the back, recognize that you're making movement. But I would like to hear a little bit more, because I know that there's a lot of people that do believe they should pay for their kids' college, and it becomes an emotional thing. And it's hard sometimes for people to kind of say, I'm going to put myself first over my kids. A lot of people think the opposite. So take me through your thinking when you decided that you were going to put your retirement first and
So at the time when we recognized, I told you we were 42 and 49, 7 years difference. And by the time we got out of debt, we were what, 44
Okay.
and in our 50s. So I think for us, we had this conversation in the very beginning where we talked about, could we realistically live on our kids' sofas in retirement? And the answer to that is no. And we want to live on their sofas, but no, we engaged our kids. We sat them down and shared with them to say, hey, we're in debt. And it's not pretty and it's not smart and it's something that we hope you guys can avoid. Yeah. And we engage them in the process. You're going to school.
So you shared that with the kids?
We shared that with them.
And how old were they at this time? That's a big conversation.
Yeah, our oldest was in his junior year of high school, and our youngest was in sophomore year of high school. And actually, they were going to the senior and junior years. And we engaged them by saying, listen, they were brilliant kids. That was the beauty of it. They were really smart kids. And we said, you can go into all this type of debt and take out all these student loans if you want, or you can be smart about it and not end up like Daddy. Daddy and I are making 6 figures a little paycheck to paycheck, and we're digging out of debt, and we don't want you to live in this experience. So we talked to them about credit cards. We talked to them about interest payments. You want to earn interest instead of paying.
Wow.
So we talked to them about, we're not saying don't go to school. We said find the best in-state school program, the best in-state school that has a program you're comfortable with or that you like. And then from there, let's talk to those schools and see the type of endowments they have. Right. Then there's this program called Scolly.com that was created by a college student.
Oh, I think I know that. It's like Scolly, SCOLLY, which is short for scholarship.
Yes.
I think some parents underestimate the contributions they can make to helping their kids get through college that's not pulling out of their pocketbook, right?
We said student loans would be the last resort. We looked at every other thing first. We went to both our employers and said, do you offer any tuition reimbursement for students? Turns out his company did. He worked for Cornell, which is connected with Cornell University. Bottom line is a teaching hospital. Whatever they would have paid Cornell, they paid a third of that to our kids. So every year we got a third of their tuition covered by his company. Wow. Then they signed up for Scully, putting in interest.
Those are some great tips,
scholarships.
Right?
Oh my goodness.
I wish more kids would, or more parents would have these open conversation with their kids. I don't think it happens often enough, but I'm so glad to hear you talk through how you had this conversation and what else you did to kind of help your kids without feeling like you needed to put your retirement at risk.
And then the last thing we did with them was we challenged them. We said, listen, we're digging our way out of debt. We know we're high income earners, and we knew we could help them in some way, shape, or form, but we couldn't help them with a mountain of debt. So we challenged them. We said, if you graduate in 4 years with $24,000 worth of student loans or less, we'll pay it off for you. What? If you graduate with $24,050, we won't pay a dime.
Oh, look at you. But you made it clear to them. So you set expectations.
Yes. So they started challenging one another. One would come on and say, I just got a Scully scholarship for $7,000. The other one says, I just got another loan for $5,000. And they had it running. They knew how much his company was paying. They knew how much they got in scholarships. And then they knew how much they had to take out in loans. And they kept it down. They got jobs during the summer. That was their pocket money while they were in school and their book money. Right. And they stuck to it and they met the deal. So we pay out their student loans. Yeah.
So I'm in love with that idea. So great tip for our listeners. I love that. So Kim, you had to come up with your FIRE number or your FIRE number, retire early too. So how did you come up with that number and what's the number?
Oh, so again, we're unicorns. So he has a really robust pension.
Okay. That can make a big difference.
Yes, and I have a really small pension. But I have a robust 401k and you have a modest 403b.
Okay.
So our number, our FIRE number, we were able to adjust it because we were able to back out that pension.
Right. So let's run through how you did the math with that. So let's say, for instance, if $100,000 a year was what you needed in retirement.
Let's be clear. Nobody needs $100,000.
Okay, so tell household anyway. So tell us what your FIRE number, what you needed annually. What were your annual expenses and projected for retirement?
Right now, the number we landed on for retirement was $110,000. And the reason we landed on $110,000 is because giving is very important to us. So initially, we said that our budget would be $140,000 a year while we were still working. And of that $140,000, we donated 37,000 of that. And I'm being honest because I think if you are earning $300,000 or more a year, 10% of that needs to be given. It needs to be given to causes that you believe in wholeheartedly.
Well, what are some of those causes, Kim? Like, what's your favorite nonprofit or charity that you like to
My
contribute?
favorite nonprofit is Planned Parenthood. And it's because I know there's political statements or feelings behind Planned Parenthood, but I know that there is a huge population of women out there that can't afford proper health care. And they can
Yeah, I was going to ask you why that's important to
They
you.
can only get it through Planned Parenthood. I volunteered as a teenager in a prison system where we packaged feminine products for women in prison because if you don't have the money to buy them, you don't get them. And it was something we gave away. And that's where I learned about Planned Parenthood and that there was a number of women out there that weren't getting appropriate prenatal care if they were pregnant or just help with family planning to prevent pregnancy. So
I don't think we hear much about that aspect, you know.
all you hear is the abortion.
Yeah. And then that's another money member
Yes.
that had an impact on you.
Huge impact. Another charity we give to it's not UNICEF, but it's the UN organization that makes sure that they're providing food and water to other places. And then the third is the spring. The spring provides drinking water. I lived in the Philippines for 6 years for business, and I know drinking water is an issue there. Even here in Indonesia, drinking water is an issue. In America, drinking water is an issue. It should be a natural thing, but it isn't.
Well, we'll put all those in the show notes. Those are close to your heart. So you spent 3 years in
6 years in the
6
Philippines.
years in the Philippines.
And I loved every bit of it.
Oh my goodness.
That's why being here in Bali makes me feel like I'm back
I
home.
see. And I have not made it there. So that is really, really cool.
Yeah.
I have never been to the Philippines. So I do hope to go one day. So you were there for work?
I was there for business.
Okay.
We partnered with 2 companies there, and the time that I was there was like life-changing for me because that's where I recognized that in the Western culture, everything is a bigger car, a bigger house, bigger and better, and the next best thing. So if you've got a house, now if something else, you don't need to pay that house off, you buy the next bigger house.
Right,
And then the bigger house. But in the Philippines, you're not looking or chasing the next bigger thing. You're looking for opportunities to spend more time with your family, spend more time with your friends, spend more money on experiences and less money on things.
So the cost of living in the Philippines must have been much different than New York.
Yes.
So were you able to save a lot of money while you were No?
Because this was before I discovered FI. I thought that was my opportunity to live really high. Before I learned all those things from my friends in the Philippines, I was spending money thinking my living expenses were paid for by my company over there. I had a driver. I had a place to live. It was a pretty nice
So
life.
where was the money going then when you were living in low cost of living Philippines?
I was in Malaysia.
Oh, you did a lot of traveling and everything?
Yes, I was traveling. It felt like every 2 weeks I was traveling.
So was this like your 20s, 30s?
Yes.
Okay, awesome.
Again.
So Kim, you know the real reason I have you here is that you had some big news this year. You made a big decision.
Yes.
You retired. So you walked us through your early memories of money, the things that were important to you, your kids, making that transition from, overspending, living a big life to finally evaluating your expenses, making some adjustments, still living a good life or whatever. We identified some really cool superpowers that you had. In New York City, the low housing and low transportation is definitely a big plus. So this year, you retired. So I'd like to know what your FI number was and your retirement number was, and how did you arrive at finally pulling the trigger on that decision?
So I think I shared with you that we are those unicorns. We have pensions and things like that.
So that was a big help.
That was a big help.
Yeah.
So I think with our pensions considered, our number was 1.4 million.
Okay.
But because we have those pensions that I mentioned earlier, it boosted our number. So we were way beyond what we needed. So in the end, when we made the decision to walk away, we hit our number a couple of years ago, and I kept having one more year syndrome. So about 3 years ago, we were able to say, all right, we have that amount of money, we can walk away.
Right.
But I kept thinking I needed to work one more year. 2 years ago, my husband had a life-changing health issue. He had a massive heart attack.
Oh my goodness.
And we're blessed that he's still here.
And he's good now?
Yes, he's fine now.
Great.
And he's here with me. But I think it was that life-changing instance. So it's funny, Shads, our number we thought was $1.4 million. And we thought we had a little bit of time to get to that $1.4 million.
Right.
But believe it or not, there's this wonderful book out there called Five for Dummies.
Oh,
And I'm not making this up. There's a portion in that book, Jackie, when you talk about if you have a pension and you factor that in, and you have
Makes a
Social
big
Security
difference.
and you factor that in. I know a lot of people are concerned that Social Security is going away, but we're at the other end of it. We're older.
Right.
I'm 58. He's already 65. He's correct in Social Security.
Okay.
My husband had a major health scare 2 years ago, and that's enough to wake you up, woke us right up. And it was enough for us to say, it's time to make a change and use things differently. So backing out his 401, I'm backing out his pension and adding in the Social Security, we surpassed our number. So when we look at our numbers today, we're at like 2.5 million, but we only needed 1.4.
That's amazing. See, that's the magic that happens when you
Yes.
start to look at your numbers. So I know a lot of people get confused on how to count their pension. Another way that, they can do it is come up with the annual amount. Like, let's say if the annual is $100,000 and the pension is $30,000.
Yeah.
So now your fine number is $70,000.
Yeah.
So now 70,000 times 25, your annual expenses, that's all you need.
That's all you need.
So that's another way to do it. But the pension can be powerful. And I have a tiny, tiny one as well. You have a tiny one.
Yeah.
I think a lot of us in, let's say, 40s, 50s could have been with an employer where they froze the pension. So it's not as big as, going to cover almost all of our expenses, but a little bit helps. So it sounds like that helped you a lot. So you had, I don't want to say overseen, but you were going for a bigger number that you didn't really quite need. So when you started looking at your numbers, you were like, I can do it.
Yeah.
But it's a big difference between knowing that your number's there and actually pulling the trigger.
Wow. I saw the numbers and I knew the numbers were there, but mentally, it just did not look real. You know how they say it's monopoly money? That's what I thought of. But I came to this retreat last year and I said before I left here, I would have a definitive answer as to whether or not I could walk away. And everyone in this community knows David Robinson
Yeah.
and Mark Troutman.
Yeah.
And I ended up sitting down with David Robinson, Mark Troutman, and Morgan for lunch. And they took a look at my numbers. And when we talked them through, Mark said, why are you still sitting there? David said, you can pull the
And Mark Troutman, he is a CFP, he's a smart guy, and David is just as smart.
Exactly.
So they were both in Bali with you. And that's the magic of being here. I think you really do kind of get away from the hustle and the bustle. And you start to have all these side conversations with some extraordinary people. I mean, we've been here this month with some of the most extraordinary people that we get to be side by side. And it is really life-changing. It clearly changed your life.
Oh, it did. And I know some people would think, oh, you got on a plane and flew all the way across the globe to Bali, or you paid X amount of money to attend. But is it worth the price of admission?
Yeah.
Just having those frank conversations with people and being able to be open and vulnerable and say, here's my fear.
Right.
Here's what I think I messed up. I did this DIY. Do I know what I'm talking about? Am I crazy? And have them tell you, no, you're not crazy. Right. It works. And the other thing is, seeing those same people, they've already pulled the trigger and retired, and they lived in downturns in the market, and they're still retired. They haven't gone back to work.
So true.
2008, 2013, the pandemic. Yeah. All the folks that I know in the fire community that have pulled the trigger and retired, they're still retired. So they can do it.
Right, absolutely. And I think I was definitely more fearful approaching it than I am now that I retired. So what was your exact date? I always like to consider this your new birthday. What was the exact date that you retired?
My first official day was July 1.
Oh, wow.
July 1, we both retired together. My husband retired and I retired. My company required us to give 90 days notice. Otherwise, it would have been March 1st. But
Gotcha.
Well,
Well, that's cool. You had an amazing Independence Day, man. July 1st. Well, congratulations. That is awesome. And I just love to hear these stories. And let's be real about Bali. This is a very low cost of living area.
Oh, very low cost.
So even though you pay for probably the most, see if you agree with this, the most expensive part is buying the ticket to fly here.
I think that's it. And a lot of folks have points
Right.
travel
Yeah.
rewards.
A lot of people that are travel buffs,
Yes.
travel rewards, they're
Yes.
masters at that.
Yes.
So I just wish everyone could experience this. Like, this is such a beautiful experience. And I just think if you're not ready to spend that kind of money on a vacation, or I consider it an investment sort of in your own mental health and wellness and all of that type of stuff, and financial wellness, it could be as well. But it doesn't have to be as expensive as most people think. When I mention that I'm going to Bali, most people think I'm spending like $10,000.
No,
I'm not.
not
You
at
know,
all.
you pay for your flight, and once you get here, I mean, you can have massages every other day for around $20.
And that's a high-end massage.
And that's a high-end
Yes,
massage.
a high-end massage.
So, you know, your meals, meals are more like $5, $8, and $12 versus $20, $50, and $100.
And a delicious meal.
Yeah, amazing meals. You get to you get to soak up the culture, and so I don't think it's as an expensive trip as it kind of looks on the outside. Because once I got here, I think I got like $300 or $400 US converted to Indonesian money, and I'm still working on spending that money. Right.
So am I. So am I. Because Amy has created a space here.
Yeah, Amy Binkley, who is founder.
Founder of the 5 Freedom Retreat. She has created a retreat that allows you to come and get immersed in the fire world while being embedded in Bali. You get a bit of the culture. You get the food.
Oh, her heart is definitely in Bali. She has shown us every nook and cranny. Yeah. But I just want to say how happy I am for you, for your husband, your family, that you made these changes. You not only reached financial independence, but you finally found the grace and the fortitude to say, I think I can retire now. You had that life-changing event that happened with your husband's health. Sometimes it takes that. So I want to finish up by asking you, what are some of your best tips for other late starters? You dropped a lot of things during our conversation, so it might be even worth going back to. But if you had to leave people with 1 or 2 tips, because you're that consummate late starter. I mean, how old were you when you kind of woke up to where you started looking at your expenses and doing stuff different?
I was 48.
Yeah,
I was 48. My husband was 55. I would say to anyone that's starting late, just start. And I know that sounds trite, just start, but start by taking a look at. It can be as simple as getting a piece of paper and a pencil. You don't need a spreadsheet. Just write down what's coming in, what's going out. And then when you're looking at what's going out, really scrutinize what's going on and say, is this a want wrapped up in a need? Like we talked about it. These are the changes that we made. We needed cell phones, yes, but did we need the cell phones we had?
Right. There's always a compromise and a happy medium.
Yes. And need the next phone that comes out.
Right. The newest cell phone. We all get caught up in that.
And just making those final tweaks. And then looking at what you're paying out in interest. So everybody gets caught up in, I can afford the monthly payment. But when you look at the overall cost of that item, can you really afford it? And even if you can pay the money out on it, what is it costing you? So take a look at what's coming in, what's going out, and especially what's your debt. Meaning, how much are you paying on a car note? How much are you paying on minimum payments on credit cards? Look at that bottom of that statement of your credit card that says, if you continue to make this minimum payment, it will take you 20 years to pay for this. That is staggering to me because that means I'm paying a lot of money in interest. And I think that got me angry.
Okay. Yeah, just some eye-opening stuff. And, you know, it goes back to, you know, some people when they're in a lot of debt and everything, they kind of like ignore it, like don't open the bills and, you know, things like that. So, I mean, I feel like it gets down to such basic things, but they can be so powerful. And if you start small, I guess you start to get big, like, okay, if I looked at this and this was something that I could change, let me see what else I can find. So it becomes a really positive cycle that is getting you in the right direction.
And I'll be honest, when you start to write out all of these numbers, it can hurt your feelings a little bit.
Yeah.
The reality of how much money you're spending. And usually if you're late starters like we were, high earners like we were, you've made some really high mistakes.
Yeah.
You've dug yourself into a pretty deep hole, but you also have a big shovel to throw at taking it out and digging your way out and just make the sacrifice to do it. Now, you're going to have some conversations with the people in your circles.
Right.
You're going to have to be honest and say, no, we can't afford that vacation right now. Or, oh, it's just not in our budget right now. Those are hard things to do when they're used to you being that person. No, I can't go to brunch this Sunday.
Right.
for the third Sunday in the month.
Right. So I want to know, how do you feel now? Because we are several months post-retirement.
Yeah.
How do you feel? How does your husband feel?
I was having a conversation with a friend of mine, Lynn Fryer. I think you know her.
Yeah.
And she was saying to me that the first 6 to 9 months is this level of euphoria that you feel. And then on the other end of it, some people have some bouts of doubt, questioning whether or not they made the right decision. But I don't have this high euphoria. I just have this sense of normalcy. It just feels very everyday. A friend of mine, Kevin, said, all I need to do is figure out, what do I enjoy more? Waking up knowing I don't have to go to work, or go to bed knowing I don't have to get up.
I love that.
I've created this great community around me that I have an online community of women, We Love Collective, that I'm very passionate
So you
about.
have to tell me about that.
Yeah.
So tell us what WE stands for.
We is Women Empowerment Wealth Collective.
Okay.
And I have to say, it was born out of economy. It was a woman in money session that we got together.
Sarah Catherine.
Yes, Sarah
like that?
Catherine.
Yeah.
And she challenged us to take the information back to the women in our sphere. And then the very next year, Sarah Catherine couldn't be there. So Elise and I stepped in and facilitated the session. And then the following year, we stepped in again. And it just continued to grow from there. We have a group of just over 500 women where we come together and we teach one another and we learn from one another and we challenge each other to take it back to their communities.
Yeah, I love that group. And I did a thing on taxes. I was very happy to do it. But you also have an event. So this will probably not air until the end of the year. So maybe the event might be over, but you plan on doing it again next year. Tell us about this event that you are now making an annual event.
Yeah. So the annual event that we're doing is Women of FI, and we're trying to bring the FI community to the Northeast. We've been traveling to Cincinnati for economy year over year. We traveled to Virginia for FI Mid-Atlantic year over year. And just being around the folks, just like you said, you come here, we have these great sidebar conversations.
Right.
And I'm trying to get folks in the Northeast to make those trips. And I think if they come to one event, if I bring it closer to home and they get there, they'll enjoy it and come out. But I also believe very strongly in creating women-centered spaces.
Okay.
So while we have an event coming up in November that's co-ed, my heart and what's near and dear to my heart is creating spaces for women to be able to learn about money. We've made the commitment that every April, it's the weekend coming up in 2026 is the weekend of April 12th through 16th. But every April, we will do a woman-centered event, and we're doing it at Sandy Cove Ministries on the Chesapeake Bay in Northeast Maryland.
Wow. I want to try to make that. So you'll have to give me the tea on all of that. Yes.
But our commitment is one annual event for women only. And we're trying something this fall. We're doing the co-ed event. We're trying to see how it goes. But it's not that we
But you really love the women's center.
I really love the women.
I saw you light up when we talked about them. And that's one of the things I'm most proud, Kim, because I know you've been in the community for a while and you were working, you're a busy woman, you know, doing your thing. And I felt like when you were headed towards retirement, that's when you're like, you know what is it that I love to do? And you'd love to do the women's center event. So I was thrilled that you were able to pull that off, and that you focused on women. And now in April 2026, you're going to be doing it again. So you have to give us all the details, and we will drop that into the show notes. And I know it'll be amazing.
Our first event was, I could just burst.
I bet. I heard a lot of really great things about it.
It was wonderful.
Yeah.
It was wonderful. I just think when you're in a space that's meant for you, you move differently. And the case in point, I lived in the Philippines for 6 years. I'm 5'5". I've never lived in a home that I didn't have a step stool in the bathroom, the kitchen, and my bedroom. Because I couldn't reach anything. But when I got to the Philippines, on my third day, I felt like I was living larger.
Oh, look at
that. And I couldn't figure out what it was. And I realized I could see over the top of everyone's head. The whole space was made for people of my stature.
Right.
So I moved differently in that space. And it's the same thing with women in finance. People say women don't understand math. They understand it more than you know.
Absolutely.
They say women aren't great investors, but once they learn it, they outpace our counterparts.
Yeah.
So it's just a matter of creating spaces where they feel comfortable and safe enough to ask questions and get the right answers without
I think that's the really important part.
Yes. And simplifying it. That's it.
Yeah.
We're not simple people, but we need to simplify it for once we know it, You know it.
Oh, and I can tell you our whole industry overcomplicates a lot of things.
Yeah.
But I want to thank you for joining us today. Like, this was delightful, Kim. What better place to do it than in Bali? You know, I'm just still enjoying it. We still got a few days left, but you've been wonderful. And thank you for being so transparent and open and sharing your number, sharing your story, sharing a lot of personal things about your family. But I think it does help people to kind of see how you did it and kind of taking us through that. So we're going to end the show, but Kim, this has been wonderful. And thank you so much for joining us.
I so appreciate you having me.
Wonderful. We'll catch you next time on Catching Up to 5.
Thank you.
So, Bill, as you know, we cannot do this show without our amazing staff and the people that help us put this on. And our editor is Fritz Brizard. We love them and they keep us going.
Yeah, Jackie, I mean, this show wouldn't have the quality it has without our folks, our peeps. And we'd also like to give you a few calls to action for the show. We love our community and we hope you love us back. If you would like to support the show and our mission to help late starters, you can do that at Buy Me a Coffee, which is a platform that allows you to make a donation. The link is in the show notes and on the website.
Check out the show notes for resources mentioned in today's show. Also, head on over to our website at catchinguptofy.com and check out our vetted resources, partners, and affiliates for discounts and their services, because we love sharing great deals.
Please share the show with others and head on over to our Facebook community to help us grow. If you prefer video, head on over to YouTube and watch the show there. We hope you've enjoyed this episode of Catching Up to 5. We would appreciate it if you could also leave us a 5-star review to help our message reach others.
And while we are financial educators that love to teach, remember that our content is for general education and information purposes only. We are not providing financial, legal, or tax advice. Always do your own research or consult a professional before making important decisions.
So, Jackie, we'll see our audience next time on Catching Up to 5. Cheers.